Hello and welcome to the DSP Leaders World Forum 2021. I'm Guy Daniels, Director of Content at TelecomTV, and joining me now is Neil McRae, MD Architecture and Technology Strategy and Chief Architect, BT Group. Hello Neil, good to see you again. Now we're going to be talking about how networks are supporting the evolution of service provision, which is a key theme at this year's DSP Leaders World Forum. What's the current status of BT's telco cloud platform, and do you think BT has broken free of its service silos?
It's a good question. I think we're on our way. I think we've got huge momentum. So we have a platform called Network Cloud. It's a partnership between us, Chronicle, Juniper, and Cisco. It's up and running. It's got services on it today. We're currently one of the major tenants, if you like, is our new 5G core from Ericsson, and that's in kind of test and trials. Um, and I think from an infrastructure point of view, yeah, the silos are definitely going down. I think from a individual technology point of view, more work to do for sure. But we're starting to realize that you know, in the past, I think different silos of telco would hoard knowledge, and they want to be the smart silo or the cool silo. I think over time we've realised that actually we need to help each other out more, especially in this shared infrastructure world, in this cloud world, and we're having to learn a lot about some real detail. People talk about commodity servers, and actually, I don't think that's really a I don't think that really exists. It's when you get into the nitty gritty of servers. What chipset are you using? How many PCI lanes are there? How does that translate into storage? What different storage types do you have? You have to work as a team. You have to break those barriers down because once you've kind of started on a path, you're stuck with it to some extent. And that's really brought the teams together in a different way of working at BT. So we actually had a plan before the pandemic to really bring this team together in a new location to kind of collaborate on the core part of the infrastructure. But COVID kind of knocked that one out, unfortunately. So we've been doing that remotely, and actually, in many respects, made massive progress. We've also got our CDN Quilt running on this platform, which is a very intensive workload, and we're delivering content for Disney Plus, for Valve Software, and we're able to control it better, we're able to deliver it better, and I think you know was there resistance on we want our own infrastructure? Absolutely, but I think over time now everyone really sees that actually bringing this together is absolutely the right direction. And I think we'll go through some maturity. The first Amazon AWS pod, I'm sure, is a million miles away from what they build today. We'll go through that same maturity model, Guy.
So, given what you said, Neil, how much easier is it now for BT to offer a new service? And does this process differ from consumer to enterprise applications?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the service, Guy. I think is it easier for us to spin stuff up without a doubt? And I mentioned our CDN. We got that up and running in kind of 3 months, and at least a month of that was kind of lawyers and signing contracts. Absolutely, it's easy for us to get services up and running in some areas, but not every area. And I think the actual service itself, or the partner that you're using for the service, or if you're building it yourself, will all dictate how hard or easy that is. There are some services that you literally press a button, it's up and running, and you're good to go. There's other more complex services like SD-WAN, where you've got the controller and the user space and the and some of the security parts on cloud. Some of it's on prem, and there's a lot to kind of realize and understand about how those different things interoperate in that environment. Things like TV, where we use the cloud extensively, deploying that's really straightforward. But when it's connectivity, or even a voice service that's contact center, or a global voice service which we offer today, that's still got some challenges. But actually, in the big scheme of what I kind of call from idea to almost museum is the way I look at it. And when you're building that service, actually the technology part of it's never the longest pole in the tent. There's, what's the UI that we want for the customer? How do we do, user-centered design with customers or test customers? How does billing work? Those things tend to be much longer things. Or if we're partnering with someone, or we need a device, those things always tend to be much longer than the technology. So some services easy, some services still a bit harder. But overall, I think increasingly the wait for infrastructure is less than what it once was, for certain.
That's very good to hear. And it's a complex network. There are diverse workloads running over it. So how have things changed in terms of data collection from your networks? And how is network and service performance data being put to use?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good question. I think I would say we're still at what I would call the egg is just hatched in the maturity of how we collect data in this environment. And actually, one of the things I've come to realize over the past 10 years, hyperscalers get a lot of credit for what they've done. One of the things that not a lot of people talk about, but I really admire in what they've done, is they've kind of built what they call observability. So, if you think about, being in an observatory and being able to see the whole galaxy and zoom in and zoom out, the hyperscalers have really nailed that, and they really know what's working and what's not, and where it is, and how, and then firing off the automation to fix it or to grow it if it needs more capacity. And we're trying to follow that model, but we're trying to follow it from here's the way we used to do monitoring and probes and all sorts of other kind of, I'm trying to think, gubbins all over the network to ensure that things were working, to a much more built-in observation. So for example, in BTTV and our set-top boxes, how can we get more telemetry out of that the application's really telling us how it's performing, and understanding the parameters coming out of that application to know that it's performing well, versus parameters that when we see them we know that it's not performing well and we need to take action. And then how do you then bring that together across the whole platform, put it into this observation area that can then fire off actions to improve it, or to add capacity, or to change things. We're probably quite early. I think telco as a whole, I think, is quite early on that journey. We've got a lot to learn, a lot to think differently about. But in some areas, we've done a lot of great stuff in our the kind of internet part of our network. We're using a lot of that observability to manage capacity and to react to outages or problems, and that's automated. And then when you've got that data coming in, as you launch a service, you start to look at, okay, when the service is working, this is the data pattern we expect to see. When the service isn't, if these data patterns changed and something's happened to the service, how do we learn about what that is? And this is where AI and machine learning can come in and help us. And again, that's where we're doing a lot of work on, that, like, this is normal and performing well, to something's changed. How do we react to that? And the challenge we face, is the biggest challenge we face is there is so much complexity in the network. We've got MIMO, massive MIMO, radios, small cells, DSL, FTTP, SD, just on and on and on and on. And each one of them's got its little bit of kind of idiosyncrasy of details that you need to know that they're working well. And I think we're kind of cracking through that and trying to standardize some of the, some of the patterns that come out of those devices so that we can react to it better. And for customers, the challenge we've got is the ultimate sensor, if you're watching TV, for example, is your eyeball. So how are we able to, what can we do with our customers and our users to also get a feedback loop and put that into this observability as well, to ensure that when we think it's good, it really is good. So I think we're really, really at the early days of that. Every day I must talk to a new probe company or a new management system company, and we're still trying to figure that out. I think there's a couple of really great players out there, Kentix, Thousand Eyes, that have done some really exciting stuff in observability that we're starting to look at and see how we can use it more.
We're picking up on network complexity. We're hearing a lot from our audience about 5G core at the moment. What are your thoughts on the potential of a 5G core platform? And do you see network slicing, which we've been talking about for many years now, as something that's worth exploring and potentially useful?
Network slicing is going to be a valuable tool, but it's kind of, I look at it as kind of like it's a Phillips screwdriver, but you still need a hammer, you still need a saw, you still need a drill. You need all of these tools to bring a service to life. Network slicing for me, I think, will really be about prioritization. Where you've got a millisecond life-threatening application that must have priority on the network. I see us using it, and versus something that's just a download that actually, if it's a little bit slower, the world won't end. I kind of see network slicing really helping us in that space. Drones flying and delivering packages. Clearly, if you need some network to guide the drone, you don't want to wait too long for that because there might be a tree in the way. But slicing, I think, can help us with those challenges. I think there's many other use cases people have got in mind for slicing, which I'm probably much more skeptical about. But I think the key thing is about experimentation, bringing all those tools together to see if that can allow us to offer something that adds value. And we're doing a huge amount on that right now with live customers. We're in Birmingham, we're doing a lot of work with the hospitals there with what we kind of call augmented ambulance, where ambulance is able to push data to the hospital ahead of arriving, so that when an emergency arrives, the doctor's already seen X-rays or seen scans or has some data that he can use to start to work on that patient right away. That's clearly a life-threatening use case, and you want to make sure that that the network is not just prioritizing that, but might be making changes to the radio tilt and pan to ensure that the ambulance from where it is to the hospital never loses connection. Not an easy thing to do, but one I think over time becomes easier with automation and the things I talked about in observability, and really allows us to offer a massive value add that could save lives. There's probably no more value add than that. Then I think there's other applications. Video gaming is huge. It has been massive during the pandemic, and how can we as telcos build on that? And I think we need to build on that. And in some of the previous sessions I've talked about, telcos were very focused on the plumbing, and the kind of connectivity and the fiber and the Wi-Fi and the cellular radios and the Ethernet and all the routing and all those devices that come together, and they are absolutely important. But as telcos, we've got to do more. We've got to step forward to offer more services, and I think the 5G core with standalone will really allow us to have a set of tools to enable those services. In many respects, some of the 5G core aspects are similar to MPLS. You know, MPLS as a technology was actually pretty boring, but as an enabler for other services, it was massive. And we're hoping that the same thing is true with 5G. But it requires us to work with customers in different ways. That, you know, getting the most out of the 5G core and the 5G network means we need to understand more about our customers' problems, and not at a high level, but in sometimes, you know, at a deep level, so that we can say, okay, actually, if we build some network here and we make this application work here, then we can make a difference to your organization, and we can make a difference to your experience and your customers' experience and our own customers' experience. But it does require a much closer understanding of the end use case, the end outcome, and what customers are expecting. And I think, again, as telcos, we've got to figure out how we bring that greatness in the 5G core to the front of the discussion that we have with our customers, and pretty much more enterprise customers. I think this will focus on, yeah, there will be some consumer benefits, but I think in enterprise and really trying to make the world more efficient is where I think this kicks in.
Another technology we're hearing a lot about at the moment, in which there's a lot of interest, is in Openrun. What are your views as to ORAN and whether or not it's got a long-time viability in the telecoms networks?
Yeah, really good question. Listen, ORAN and Openrun, fantastic bit of development, huge amount of work that's happened and gone in. You know, many parts of our industry come together to really push ORAN. But you know, in some respects, you know, a lot of folks say, Neil, you're a bit negative on ORAN. I'm absolutely not negative on ORAN. Anything that helps us do more for our customers is valuable. But what I want to just add is we need to be a bit balanced. You know, ORAN has brought a huge amount of effort and focus to build something that you could argue we've already got, which is RAN and radio and the, you know, the things that we use today. I would like to challenge and ask our industry to think about how we might come together to build services for the future, platforms for the future that would really make a difference for our customers and have that same ambition and that same momentum that we've got in Openrun, but to look at that for services that ultimately we can charge for, we can generate cash for, in a way that with ORAN, you know, it might save us some money, but it's not going to make a dramatic difference to our businesses. More in the way that, you know, creating a new security standard across telcos might help us generate more trust and more business for our industry. And I think it's just about getting that balance right. And it feels to me that whilst it's right that we've got a lot of focus on Openrun, I think we need more focus on other new innovative services that will run on the 5G core and will run on some of our other telco clouds that we're all building.
Well, picking up on the need for telcos to do more, this past year we've seen tremendous progress in the rate of digital transformation. What do you think would enable you as BT to go even faster?
A really good question. Something my our CEO asks me every day, frankly. Listen, it's one, being really clear about what it is you're trying to do, and ultimately what customer you're landing on. And I think we've got better at that in our industry. We need to keep getting better at it, for certain. But ultimately skills. We have everything that we are trying to do today. There's not a single project we have in BT where if we had a bit more skills or a bit more knowledge or a bit more experience in some areas, that we would go faster. And this is one of the things I'm really proud about of what we do in BT, which is we're bringing those skills on through grads, through apprentices, through ex-armed forces. We're trying to bring people into BT, train them, develop them, give them a career, build a career with them, and build those skills for the future. But also, I think we're having to go out there and acquire skills and frankly pay the money. And my HR and finance director will have a heart attack at me saying that, but I think it's crucially important. We have got to have equilibrium with the best that's out there, if not even better. And as we compete against the hyperscalers, it's cool to work at Google. Maybe it's is it cool? Is it as cool to work at BT? Actually, from the work that you're doing, hell yes, it is. But we've clearly got some work to do on our branding and how people see us and how people want to build careers with us. And that applies across our whole industry. How many, people have heard of BT and Sky and Virgin Media and O2. They've heard of us, but have they heard of Colt? Have they heard of Lumen? Have they heard of Verizon? Probably less so. And I think we all as an industry have to kind of work together to show that actually a career in our industry, developing your skills for our industry is massively fulfilling, and you can do some fantastic stuff. And I'll reiterate something I said earlier in the week. We have more patents in AI than any other company in the UK. That's the sort of technology that we're developing. We're developing it at the grassroots level, not taking other people's and kind of fiddling with it. We're really building our own capability there. So I would encourage everyone out there to look at our industry as a fantastic career and to help us build the engineers and the developers and the coders of the future. And again, we work with government on that closely as well. But it's a, for me personally, I work in telco because we make such a difference in the world. And this past year in the pandemic has really shown that. And I hope that the pandemic is a springboard for us, Guy, where we don't just go back to how it was, but we actually continue with the pace. One thing I will say though, one thing that has got slower, I think, is some of the standardization processes that we used to have in telco. That where everyone gets together at an IETF or a GSMA or 3GPP meeting. The sense I'm getting from the team is that that's slowed down in terms of the pace of development. And, I think, it feels like we're getting to the end of this pandemic. God hope that's the case. And, I think that's where we'll start to see some people coming together and some ideas starting to really take off again, because I think we need that, and we need that pace to continue. And it does feel like it's dropped off a little bit. So, our business is about people. It's about having really skilled and engaged people, and that's what that's the environment I try to build inside BT, to allow people to be successful, to really work with new technology and understand it at the deepest level, so that we can use it and make our customers' lives better. That's the opportunity, and that would help us go faster.
Great points, Neil. As ever, thanks for sharing your views and opinions with us. Now, our interview with Neil is part of this year's DSP Leaders World Forum. We have a full schedule of interviews, roundtables and live Q&A programmes, all available right here on TelecomTV. For now, though, thank you for watching and goodbye.